Travillian Next is a division of Travillian, a financial services specialist search and talent advisory firm. Since inception, the Travillian team has dedicated itself to enhancing the return on investment of a company's most important resource, its people.
Hello. Welcome to another great episode. Very excited about this episode. We have two iconic franchises in the world of fintech and banking coming together for one spectacular show. Am I hyping it up too much? I feel like
I love it, man.
I'm building up the
WWE championship.
Yeah, I feel like we need Michael Buffer to come out and say let's get ready to rumble.
Let's get ready to rumble.
Yeah, if you have an extra, I think he charges $500,000. So if you got an extra, something like that, something astronomical. But we have FedFis, banking helping bankers, Fintech Cowboys, and Brian and I, of course, from Travillian Next. So hello, Brian.
Hey, Keith.
Hello, Tanner and Dave.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Keith. Hey, Brian.
How you guys doing?
Doing great.
Good.
Nice to
Very
see you.
well.
I had a couple of banker conversations, actually one over the weekend, believe it or not, on the topic that I thought was fun for you guys. So actually talking about talent, hiring, and it was specific to banking as a service, which I'm like, all right, I got a show about this next week. But it was funny because, they made the comment, they better stated than I'll say this, but they're like, how do I hire somebody smarter than me? Right. And I'm like, hey, don't worry, man. I do it all the time. I understand the problem. Right. And sometimes you succeed and sometimes you fail. Right. And so I was thinking about you, I was thinking about you guys and, solving that problem. It's pretty funny because I think I know for certain better than anyone else, because we have all the data and we can see everything. We know exactly that you guys are the epsilon, right? And everybody that you work with, you guys are the premier talent side of BaaS. And I mean, maybe a gray area into different innovative banks, right? Different other things. So
thank you for that compliment. We've really
here's what I told the bank I talked to. I would bet that you guys, just from an IP perspective, could hang on BaaS better than 95% of the banks.
Oh, yeah.
Like you could run a BaaS strategy at a bank, just like you guys actually could do it better than 95% of the banks. That says something.
Do that.
Oh, yeah.
you hire the right people. I think if we know all the right people who would lead us in the right
just
direction.
by association,
Just
right?
by association.
Yeah.
Brian and I have talked about that in the past.
But you see the point, right? That is the value of whether, I guess, just IP and network, right?
Yeah.
In this space, it's pretty difficult, and you guys know that better than anybody.
Thank you so much for that compliment, and right back at you. We see FedFis everywhere nowadays on LinkedIn. And what was the partnership that just came out today? Finsley? Am I mispronouncing?
Association.
They joined the BaaS Association.
A huge shortage in talent there. I mean, look, guys, I think about it the last 5-6 years here. I mean, there was a couple of dozen people really that were real players 5 years ago. Now it's a mainstream topic. And I mean, we're talking about low hundreds still of people that are really in the game.
Yep.
And I mean, you got a serious glut going on as tons of BaaS banks or people exploring and investing in technology to go that direction. We're seeing the same thing from the vendor and infrastructure side, right? I'm seeing tons of consultants that don't know what they're doing, picking up BaaS bank opportunities because all the good people are taken and too busy to help them, right? Phones ringing off the wall. I'm seeing the same thing with vendors where I got banks. I'm like, you're implementing what core? Like they don't even have a live US bank, and that's your BaaS strategy because everybody else is backed up, right? And so you got a foot race in BaaS right now that's affecting the whole, let's just call it supply chain.
Some of those guys, you're probably talking, for a long time there was 15, 20, then there was about 40 BaaS banks. We're 81 now. And that happened pretty quick.
And there's a couple of dozen.
There's another 10 that were through acquisition went away, so it could have been even bigger. Now the talent pool is unique, and it is not that big. And so what you're really seeing right now, to your point, and I can't believe you said it out loud, that was great, is there's a lot of people out there that'll tell you all about it that don't know a damn thing about it.
That's right.
They read it from somebody else. But here's the deal. It used to be very, very expensive and took a long time because it was learn as you go with the tools we had at the time. There's different tools, there's different ways to do it now, sidecar, other things that make this a more efficient way to do it if you've got the talent and the people who are like smart enough to call Tanner.
Good point, man. The talent side of all this is the difficult part. There's not that many people that are real players. And you talk about a space to either succeed or fail, like visibly, right? I mean, you're talking headline news if you do well or don't.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
so much money changing hands.
Oh, yeah. Big time partners, big time fintechs. Now, can you tell our audience on the Travillian side exactly what FedFis does, what banking helping bankers
I have no idea.
does? You just put on the hat.
Just read from the script. Read from the script down below there. The teleprompter.
Where's the teleprompter?
This is where you like insert the marketing video, right? No, so we set out, 6-7 years ago. We've always played on the financial data side of the world, right? So bank financials, let's just say. We get about 5,000-6,000 items each quarter on banks and credit unions, some call report stuff. We started pushing more and more into the technology side. So what we call Fintegration ecosystem, we track who the banks use as technology providers for their tech stack, same with credit unions. And we started tracking heavily into the fintech landscape. So that would be defined as non-chartered financial services folks, right? So Chime, we track 7-Eleven, right? Current or Robinhood, et cetera. And then who are the banks that are sitting behind those, right? Often it's card side and the issuing bank, but there's a fair amount like the Cross Rivers that do a lot on the lending side, right? So we track all that. So data is sort of the foundation for us, and that goes into everything we do. So from our Roundup event, we bring in, actually guys, we just hit a milestone 2 weeks ago. It will be the single largest gathering of BaaS banks ever. We're really stoked about it.
Awesome.
The BaaS Association will be there, and the BaaS Association board will be there. And think about bankers helping bankers. Really, all those bankers came together in our platform there, where we implement all that data and education. And they came together educating, and a bunch of them were BaaS banks saying, hey, right? They're calling you guys and they're calling us. And we're like, hey, okay, cool, we'll do it, right? And started that BaaS Association. Yeah. So you can see how data is sort of foundational for us, but it's also, funny enough, it makes you look smart when you have data that nobody else has, right? Yeah. And so you kind of got a little IP feed into everything as well.
There's a thing that we talk about a lot with like vertical integration of data sets and all this stuff. So you kind of oversimplified there. There's mergers, there's all kinds of branch data, holding company data, there's fintech data. We also have so we have fintech analytics. Yep. We've got the Fintegration ecosystem that we created. And everybody's like, well, where do you get this data?
A lot of it we build.
Yeah, you build a lot of it because you integrate different pieces. And, I tell people a lot of times, if you had a guy with a striped shirt and he's got a flag in his pocket, a whistle, I got it. You get a different guy with a mask on it. He's a baseball umpire. Okay, this guy's an NFL ref. You begin to see things, then you have to validate. Now, validation has to be done in the right way. Then you end up with data that's truth.
Mm-hmm. So that's probably the biggest punchline. That was a good one, man. So yeah, we look at banking and we see misinformation. We see fear sales and lies, right? Yep. I mean, look, we've all been on all sides of it, right? You've been a banker. We founded a bank association, right? You guys have been on the talent side and the technology. We've been all over this thing, and you see that by and large, everybody who sits in the middle is pretty much full of shit, right? And somebody's getting screwed somewhere, right?
We call them doers.
Yeah, I love the concept of doers, right? And consultants are not doers. You got people out there, right, just screaming at the bankers, you got to do this or you'll die. And it's like, says the guy with a blog talking about the core. Are you serious? You want to know about how to build a core. Okay. So we think that data from our perspective, I can't answer every question, but I can answer a lot of them. And we can have a factual foundation of truth. And then we can all go make opinions from there, right? We can't just start at guesswork. We got to have some foundation.
A humbling moment is when you think you know everything and then you get the hard data and you go,
oh, wow. You should hang out with us on the weekends, man. All we do is kick our own ass with data. And we're like, we thought we had it, but data says we're wrong.
Yeah. And since we're in this same, arena, we know a lot. And you brought up the BaaS Association, and I'll get to that. And this is where kind of the genesis of this BaaS Association started. We got to know you guys. I got to know Bobby Button over the last 6, 7, 8 months. Brian and I, especially over the last, 6, 7, 8, 9 months, Brian, kept on hearing our BaaS clients and other BaaS banks we know and highly regard and talk to just for kind of intel saying, or coming to us saying, do you know of any BaaS associations? You guys should start a BaaS association because we just feel like we need to bring us all together now that we're 70, 80 banks. So we have best in class, best practices, regulatory, maybe lobbying efforts. So that's when this kind of started, I'd say probably back in February, March. I mean, I think we had our first call and kind of just rolled from there. And you guys, have been doing a lot of the heavy lifting, thank God. Because you have you have IBAT, you already have the Roundup. Brian and I are, we're gonna get in there, and you got board members, and it's great to see. What do you see from your end on the BaaS Association?
Sorry, say that again.
How do you feel it's proceeding, and what would you say it is at this point?
So I'll give you a couple of cliff notes that I was thinking over the weekend. We've got one of our actually are going to be our chairman recently elected. We won't say who yet, or can we?
We can.
Okay, so Robert Kyle from Sutton, the board has elected him as our first chairman.
Oh, awesome.
Great.
And so we've got amongst the just the board, not even the membership, which we've got a lot of members now. Just amongst the board, we've got the bank with the most fintechs, which is like 40 something.
Yeah.
Can you imagine managing 40 different, right? And some of them are, I mean, it's the names that we all know.
We've got the one that's bringing on the most fastest.
Right, bringing the fastest. We've got the one that's got the most cards, 100 and something million cards. Oh my gosh, right? And so you got some of those, and you add that up, and collectively, just the board was the largest institution in the US, if you just added it together. So I think that's a milestone, right? You start looking at the membership, and I mean, we're probably approaching half of the fintechs represented with a fairly small number of institutions, right? In the dozens, let's say. That is super interesting because, let me say it to you this way. He often says, if you turned off the BaaS banks, you'd turn off fintech. And we're kind of feeling that in the association, right? We get on those calls and I'm like, guys, if a bomb hit this Zoom call right now, you would take out fintech.
Right.
You know what I mean?
We can't all be in the same room at the same time.
Right. So that's actually really neat and interesting because I think the camaraderie, right? Everybody feels like they're amongst peers, and that I don't know, it helps to build everybody up and realize that if we work together, we actually can be impactful to do some things, right?
Yeah. Especially new members too, and banks who are thinking about getting into it or just starting can now look to the veterans of the industry and everything they went through over the last 5 or 6 years, and the roller coaster and the bad hires that maybe didn't fit the culture, and all of it, technology, regulators, government agencies, and they can look to them as kind of advisors. And I think, Brian, we have learned that these banks are more than willing to help.
Right.
Yeah. The worst question to ask a BaaS bank is, how did you get started? How did you do it?
And or where do you find a fintech?
It's the worst. The better question. It's like building a doghouse. It's like, is that an airport? It's like, no, it's a doghouse. The second one you build, they're like, that's a doghouse.
Right.
Okay. The question is, if you had it to do over again with what we have today.
And that's my fear. That's my fear, guys. I see a ton, like I mentioned, from the consultants. I mean, the white papers and case studies I've read in the last couple of months are terrifying, right? So you got the consulting community out there. They know they have to be talking about it to be relevant, and they're just a mess. So that's scary. Yeah. They're sort of educating with their bank customers, not great, in a complicated market. And then you've got a lot of the same from the technology infrastructure side, right? It's sort of a playground of, I've got a cool idea. Somebody gives me a bunch of capital. I'll go try it out on some banks and see how that works out. Yep. Right.
We built our own compliance system, fully compliant for everything in the bank.
When you think about, you don't know if it's fully compliant at the fintech level or the infrastructure level until the bank goes through an audit, right? And that could be 18 months later, right? So you got some things that are pretty concerning going on that'll take some time to be a little more public and take some time to work through the chain. But what's funny is actually BaaS banking as a whole, and the ones doing it well, unbelievably, it's going great, right? They're having huge success, and it's safer and sounder than ever before.
Because they've gone through those trials and tribulations to
we're
get
probably
there.
going to see another wave, right?
Yeah.
There'll be some scary stories, or like the Voyager thing, or And so you've got people that aren't necessarily bad actors right now going on, that this is honestly probably the biggest reason for the BaaS Association. And so there's a place to come to. All the BaaS banks today don't want the new guys to screw it up.
Yeah.
It's not good for any of us.
Bad press.
There's the whole
And
You get
the
get
BaaS
Washington involved. Yeah.
I mean, Robert from Sutton, Robert will tell you right now, he's like, we want to help, and other community banks do this. It is a good thing because fintech is trying their best to go around the charter, and that can't be allowed to happen, right? It's not safe. It's not good for community banks, obviously. And so the more that community banking comes together in this direction, it's better for, I mean, all the way right down to the American consumer.
Well, this is where Travillian comes in, is that, okay, there is a smart way to do this, and there's a really expensive, dumb way to do this. And there's a lot of wordsmith bad things that are being said out there that aren't even correct. That are, and definitely not how you ought to do it today. All right, so let's take this guy. He's our specialist, and he comes in and shows us how to do it today, and he does a really good job of it. Once he's done, yeah, he's shorter. But once that's done, okay, I need a different guy to come in and maintain, innovate, go from there. This guy is now back on the market, can come back to Travillian and go out here and help the next guy. All right, this talent pool is unique. It's highly skilled and specialized. What we see in our data, so we have contact data and all these things.
This is a cool data point. You guys are going to love this.
Okay, so in our information, you know, we have all the contact data on the banks and the financial, all of that. Okay, we do the same thing for fintechs. So what we see, the turnover has, you know, you have to update your contact data every
the
quarter,
churn in employees at BaaS banks and fintechs is
significantly higher.
Oh, sure.
It's like a tech company, you know,
Right.
you don't stay that long because you
Yeah.
want a
Well-
new challenge, or you already built it and you're like, now I want to move and build something else.
What is it the banker is deficient in? Knowledge of fintech. And here's the greatest area of turnover. Travillian picks these guys up with specialty pieces and things like that that can plug into your institution and help you get this stuff going, help you maintain it better, help you innovate for the future.
Yep.
They're different roles.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
and
Brian, you had a search last year, the payments professional, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many searches that come to mind as we talk, but the deficiency we see a lot of times with fintech forward banks is culture. And what we do at Travillian, there's really two things we do. It's intelligence, knowing who wants to move where and when, who's available, right? But also who's doing what and everything. But it's also storytelling. And that's the thing, is you can kind of sniff out which places are not easy to work, and you know that you can probably pull people from there. These are things that I don't think a lot of people know, but Keith, you and I know that there's places we go, there's mines that we, you know, kind of jump into and pull the coal out of. And so we kind of have that, you know, we work in the shadows. We know where that talent is.
Yeah, we
And
say
when
we're
you-
like the
Yeah.
CIA, but not as cool.
when you're doing searches like the coastal community president, we placed Kurt there at Coastal.
That was a huge one, guys. That was
Yeah.
And it's awesome. And we were, even before that, Lincoln Savings had a very similar search too. And when you're doing those searches, it kind of gives you carte blanche to call on just about anyone in this space. And you're talking to the number twos, number ones, board members, the whole nine. You really get access to information that, a lot of folks don't have. And of course,
the distance there. I mean, do you guys feel like we do? Because we're in that same spot, the kind of the pinch yourself. I'm laughing, right? Hopping like on the BaaS Association calls, people are like, man, like this is so cool doing this with you guys, right? And I'm like, I want your autograph, right? This is cool.
I thought there, you know what, Tanner? I thought there should be trading cards, like an Eric Sprink trading card, Gilles from Cross River,
You see the distance when you talk to these rock star people and the senior people. I mean, you're talking about definitely our conversation. Every bit of this is 1% of bankers and the 1% of the rock stars at those banks, right?
Yep.
This is the epsilon.
It's a small network.
The distance there. I mean, thinking of talent or whatever better words than I would use for rock star people. When you talk to those people and then you go talk to an average guy like me, right? I mean, it is shocking to me how far ahead these people are. I mean, they're an entire lifetime, a whole career ahead of whatever the average banker looks like.
Yeah.
That's
What Brian and I get excited about? It's kind of finding that emerging talent also. It's almost, It's almost like being a baseball scout a little bit, you know. This guy's under the radar, you know, he's coming up, and we just think he built his own fintech, or he's because you're seeing a younger generation now that is very tech savvy, that is seeing the advantage of going to a BaaS bank or a digital bank or a fintech bank, and being able to kind of take the reins of the strategy and help build and work with the CEO instead of going to, a mega bank and just kind of sitting in a cubicle and being a cog in a machine. And, you're starting to see that now, which before, maybe even 5 years ago, you didn't really see that talent gravitating towards community bank.
Well, yeah, and I think of some of the folks that kind of were there on the ground floor, 5, 6, sometimes 8, maybe it's 8 years ago, building these BaaS banks. And these are bankers that turned into like tech savvy folks. Like that is the anomaly. Like it's like I said earlier, you can't really home grow the talent anymore. But these are people that saw it back in 14, 16 and started going, to it, like the central payments guys, like Eric Sprink, like Eric Stovegard and his team at LSBX. I'm sorry, it looks like you wanted to say something there, Dave.
Cross River, right?
Cross River.
Brian,
these people are so smart. It's unbelievable.
But they lived in a time of literally like giving birth to an industry, right?
Yeah.
And so to the point, they had time to figure it out and learn. And you've got a group of people that you'll never make another one, and nobody will ever be able to do it that way again. And these people will always be top, right? Yeah. And so that's how we look at the BaaS Association board, right? I mean, that was us and you guys with all of that group that we had. You guys have a handful, we have a handful. I think it was 15 or 17 banks initially that came to the two of us saying, hey, can we all band together? Like, that's a quarter of the total BaaS banks saying actively one at a time saying, how do we all get together? That's a heck of a movement.
It was so funny, guys.
Yeah.
The roundup last year, right as we're all about to leave, everybody's out. It's like, hey, can we get together? I was like, y'all ought to get together. And they're like, no, you get us together. I'm like, I'm not the guy,
Well, and simultaneously, we had created the Tech Forward Bank Index, which, hopefully you guys are familiar with. And it was our idea. It was very similar. It was like, let's just shine a light on these cool banks and these cool people. And it was no-brainers. The first 10, 12 were like no-brainers, right? And then we were like, what can we do with this community? And it was kind of like, Keith and I were like, this is over our pay grade. We've never put a conference together.
We're gonna run out of Chili's in Scranton, and everybody fly in February.
And then it just all kind of like it fit really well earlier this year. And we had one specific bank came to us and said that he had talked to all of his BaaS peers, and there was a lot of inconsistency out there around operationalizing risk and compliance. There were duplication of costs and, buying power and things like that. And it was like light bulb. And literally like that same week we talked to you guys and it was like, this makes so much sense to do.
I mean, you already had the roundup in full speed, it's going to be bigger than ever. And I was just thinking we should have at the roundup, we should vote on a Mount Rushmore of BaaS, pioneers, maybe Sprink gets voted up on.
Actually, I'll give you a tip. So every year at our roundup, we give away, it's the Buffalo Award. It's, who did the most to save or innovate in community banking. And guys, this is invite only, the whole damn conference is. From the sponsors into the bank.
I had the horrible task this weekend of working with a couple on our team and going through the wait list for the roundup.
Oh man.
And I mean, the people that we're having to say no to makes you sick to your stomach. Because
Can you live stream it too? Is it going to be digital also, or just in person?
See,
okay.
We feel different than everybody else does.
Yeah.
We think that a lot of times people get very open with IP to showcase themselves. We live in the shadows with the rock stars, and we understand the value of secrets, right?
This group of people.
Agreed.
It may not be the most popular topic, but we know where the badass things happen and how to do them. And that's not for everybody to have.
No, I like it.
about Silicon Valley in the early days that everybody was eating these drugs and all this and being super creative. Like, it's like the Roundup. 3 o'clock, you better start having a happy hour a little bit earlier. You know, these people are-
The next great invention is happening at your Roundup, you know, at a table in the back. That's how it starts. I mean, that's how it starts. I mean, you get a lot of smart people in the same room and they have a few drinks in them, and then all of a sudden they start talking about what could be and can it happen? That's innovation.
Yeah, kicking people out at midnight, you know, right? Like, guys, we said this thing was over at dark, you know, come on.
It goes to midnight.
Well, I wanted to bring up a topic here because it's kind of like a little open forum here. And I mentioned culture earlier. You know, there's places where, you know, we know there's some toxicity. There's places where it's an amazing bank to work. You know, fintech always kind of marches to the beat of its own drum, right? It's, you know, it's just kind of go, go, go. Banking is a little more parochial and, you know, everything gets committed to death, right? We're talking about the space that's like the Venn diagram of the two. And sometimes there's a push and pull. We do a lot of advisory around, you know, how to attract better talent, how to kind of, you know, look at your culture and make sure that you can get that guy from Apple or that girl from Google or whatever it might be, right? So I was just kind of curious if you have any thoughts on culture and what makes a good BaaS bank culture.
I got it.
You don't get to speak on this topic.
Make sure they can wear a cowboy hat.
There you go.
And they drink Coke.
There you go, man. Yes. I'll tell you one that grabs the hell out of me, guys. It's just think about the leadership and the appetite, right? What's their forward-looking statement or what do they think about? We get so many calls, especially these days, we're just crushed by bankers want to talk about things. And it's, I don't want to say frustrating, but it gets in the back of your mind when everybody's calling to ask, what are we seeing? What's going on? What are others doing? And bankers are followers. They always have been. They're not original thinkers. That right there, I think, is the difference in the group of BaaS banks that we have so far. These are original thought innovator badasses.
Not willing to break things, be disruptive, and
like me,
fail.
Right? We're a cowboy.
Be open to failure. You got to be open to failure.
Yeah, you got it.
Things are not going to work out, but if you just sit back and wait, I mean,
and I think bankers for, 1,000 generations, right, have had a very franchise mentality. I always talk about it. They're franchisees, right? They call the regulator, right? Can I do this or do that? It's not like you would see in a software shop or an entrepreneurial spirit. We're seeing one heck of a shift there right now. So I think my biggest, to your point on culture, when I talk to leaders of banks, you can tell in the first 5 minutes which of those two groups that they live in. Yeah. And I can tell you when we look at the financials, which one's winning. I think we all know the answer.
Oh yeah, sure.
And that's what Brian and I say the same thing about candidates. We can tell within 5 to 10 minutes of a phone call, you know, is this person, would they fit with a BaaS bank?
Right.
Well, yeah. And there's also
hiring. Yeah.
Something you guys said earlier. I think humility is huge in culture because a lot of the bankers don't want to hire people that are more, you know, that are smarter than them. You said it at the beginning of the call, right? Yeah. It's not difficult for me to hire someone smarter than me either. So
hey, that's my culture. I keep the bar low.
Yes, right.
Reality there of we have to be profitable, we have to be compliant, and there is no room for error. And then this group over here is like, do what?
Let's go try things, give it breaks.
Hold my beer, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So but there's innovation and there's neat things here, but let's get straight on this. They're not all profitable. They don't all succeed. And so you have to have an eye for the ball if you're on this side of the fence.
Which brings me to my final thought and question. I believe we've all been talking about BaaS for a long time, and we're coming to the end of a sort of a first generation right now that is BaaS as a strategy. We're going to see BaaS as a division, a segment, a business line for every institution in the country.
Hold on. What this guy's about to tell you is the most important shit you're going to hear.
Wait. We got to build this up. We'll add some music, like a score. John Williams.
Okay, this is funny, man. Nobody ever wants to make like predictions because you're usually wrong, right? I don't give a shit. I don't mind being wrong. I think every BaaS bank is, it's as a strategy. It's like a division, right? That is coming, to the end of that, where bankers are reaching out saying, we're looking at you doing BaaS as a strategy at our bank, right? it's going to be just like you have the payments group or the compliance department. It's going to be a department at every bank if they want a business customer.
Yeah.
And what does community banking do? We do small business. And think about this, guys. Years ago, the consultants and thought leaders are screaming, watch out, the big techs are coming. It's like, if you looked at Amazon recently, I mean, they've got everything. You can get like 7 different credit cards, line of credit, you name it, okay? They just actually came out with a Palm. Have you seen the Palm thing? Okay, you can scan your hand as a point of sale payment hub.
Oh, God.
From Amazon. And it's called Amazon One. Check it out. All right, now think about, I told somebody the other day, think about the S&P 500. Right? And all the technology companies there. Walmart is working with Coastal, right? Mm-hmm. And Walmart, I think it's actually called One, is the fintech that they
One
launching to Walmart customers. Think about 7-Eleven now, Home Depot, bunches of these folks, right?
For their own employees.
So what you have right now is a shift from the big techs. We need to worry about Google too. You need to worry about everybody in the S&P 500 because they're all in the throes of a financial services strategy.
Right.
It's working its way down. What's next? We're going to come down to companies that have 50 employees. Then it's going to be companies that have 10, and then it's going to be sole props, right? And right now it's an opportunity for community bankers, get into BaaS and go after businesses that have some distance from them. Those wouldn't have been your customers. I tell you, in the next 2 years or so, this is going to turn into defense in a big way. And so when I talk to bankers today, I'm like, should you consider it? I'm like, you want to talk about a great chance to be an early adopter before it kicks your ass. Yeah.
Merchants are capturing the ability to give credit on site. Doesn't even matter if it's inventory financing or whether it's point of sale.
Scan a QR code with the plumber and get a line of credit.
I can give my people a full card. I can have all kinds. I mean, there's everything that can be. I can do earned wage, put onto a prepaid. There's so many things. So the financial services are being drilled down to the merchant level. And his point
is,
fintech
just got done with retail, guys, and now they're out of little to build, and they're like small business
it's coming to you.
Yeah.
Well, I think of blockchain also kind of trickling into everything that you're saying, because that's going to make things even more efficient.
Efficiency, smart contracts. Yeah. Very interesting. No, so what's your prediction? What's the big prediction? Was that the prediction?
In the next 2 years that you're going to see every community bank have to have a BaaS department, BaaS division to serve a small business. And I always tell everybody, the words will change, the topics will change.
Embedded finance, that seems to be a hot topic.
Yeah, I mean, the core vendors and others will be selling. Yeah, they'll be selling these services and things as part of a treasury management or cash management system. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The words will change, but this is smashing together. And I think my biggest prediction and point is that right now is the last probably 6 or 12 months where bankers can think about this as a new opportunity and a new way to grow.
That's it.
And it's going to shift into something that, once again, it's defense.
To that point, let me just reiterate this. I'm going to pound this home one time. What he's trying to say to everybody is right now it's an avenue. You can get involved and be a BaaS bank.
Tomorrow it's a feature.
What he's saying, it's a friggin' department next year.
Yeah, it's going to be
2 years from now, you're going to have it.
Yep.
In your bank, or you won't be around.
Right.
There will be options because every merchant customer, every business client, and every consumer is going to want all of this. Because now the horses are out of the barn, guys. My dog Crockett has a fintech and a debit card. I'm kidding, but he could.
I think they do have pet. There is a pet bank out there, right? Like a digital bank for pets.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you guys are saying. I think even as new de novos trickle out, they are going to be servicing very, very niche communities, very, very niche segments of the community as well. Maybe even different types of, people from different nationalities, people different ages. I think all of those things are going to happen. I don't think those banks can do it without fintech partnerships either. So we are also seeing there's some VC and PE money trickling in, trying to acquire banks. You did see, Lending Club buy a bank. You saw GECO buy a bank. I want to think that that's going to continue to happen. Although, you're up against Washington, but I think it will.
I think you just absolutely nailed it, but everyone else is missing it because yet again, this is not a different cycle. everything's exactly like it's always been. It's just applied a little different and the words are different. Fintechs are the new de novos, boys and girls. Everybody missed that. Okay. And 81 banks, the BaaS banks today, got all the juice from that whole cycle, and me, because I invested in all of their stocks. I've made more money off of the damn BaaS bank stocks than on anything else I've ever done. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, we could hold that.
Because
those are the ones growing. Yeah, those are the ones with a growth plan, and the innovative thinkers. The money always goes to the firms that are thinking, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ahead. And, well, this has been absolutely everything I expected and more.
I had a blast.
It's like the Top Gun movie, Top Gun 2. I went in with high expectations, and they hit those expectations. So, thank you, fellas.
Awesome.
Great talking to you as always.